We do have men that are in that situation or could be facing that situation. So let's speak to that for just a moment, because I think that's very important, right? It can, if you don't approach that, I don't know if the right word is in a proper way, but in a healthy way. Let's use the word healthy, right? If
Yeah.
this is approached in an unhealthy way, this can do a lot of damage to the kids, right?
Oh,
So let's talk
absolutely.
about, if you were writing the book on this, right, of the power of an amicable divorce,
And I may one day, just so you know.
right? what, and it might be coming out in April of 2020.
Yeah, seriously. This might be the
um,
website. No, I'm just
that's
kidding.
right. That's right. What might you write about? What would be, how have you done this? What comes to mind?
When we talk about outcome and process, this is where I found as I get older, uh, life is becoming more simplified. I'm not saying life's becoming easier, but it's becoming more simplified. And I think with anything, you start with the end in mind and you say, okay, what do I want this to look like? And then you work backwards and say, okay, what is the behavior that I need to exhibit or the habits I need to have to greatly increase that chance? And let's just say we'll use divorce as an example. Say, okay, if I could fast forward 3 years from now, what would I want my life to look like? What would I want my life to look like for my kids? And now let's start working backwards and let me figure out what portions of that can I control. And that was one of the hardest for me, because I think anyone that's gone through divorce or any trouble in a relationship, it's very easy to default and start pointing the finger at the other person. Well, if you would just do this, we would be fine. Or if you wouldn't have done this, we would be okay. And that took, it took several years of therapy and full transparency for me to get past that. And that was just all ego talking. I had to get past and say, okay, I don't control what she thinks or what she does. All I can control is what I do. And I know that the way that I treat my children's mother is going to have a lasting impact on how my sons treat women when they're older and how my daughter will allow a man to treat her when she's older. And I decided that that was kind of my North Star. And that was what was most important to me. So then I had to start making sure that all of my habits, my behaviors, everything I said and did was in alignment with what I wanted my goal to be. And
Mm.
once again, very easy to say right now, very easy to put on paper, not easy to actualize. And where I'm incredibly grateful is she took a very similar approach. And that's why I think we were able to be very amicable. And I use that same filter in every area of my life. Like, I have this vision of the man that I want to become. I want to be someone that is incredibly connected with his children. I want to be someone that is mentally, physically, and emotionally fit. I want to be someone that loves his career and enjoys filling buckets of other people, either through writing or through spoken word. Like, that's the man I want to be. So now I make sure that every decision I make, even something as small as what am I going to eat for lunch, is in alignment towards that it's taking me closer to being that man, not further away. And by running everything through that filter, like I said, it's helped simplified life, but it doesn't make it easy to make some of those decisions in the moment. And I'll use traffic as an example. You're sitting in traffic, you're getting angry, you're a little ornery, somebody cuts you off, you honk your horn, you give them the finger. Just take a step back. When you're creating yourself in the future, do you really want to be the guy that gives the finger to a stranger because they cut you off? Like, do you really want to be the guy that's blood pressure goes up because of something outside of your control? I don't want to be that guy. So then I work very hard not to have those types of gut reactions. And when I do, or if I do, I catch myself quickly and I try to learn from that and say, okay, like, don't let that person get the best of you. Don't let this thing get the best of you. As you've noticed, I am a little bit of a quote nerd, and I heard a quote the other day that I loved, and it says, he who angers you owns you. And I
Yeah.
was like, wow, that's really powerful. And I don't know who to attribute that to. I just heard it out of context, but and I try to think about that a lot when I find myself in frustrating or irritating situations.
Yeah.
I think I don't want to give the power to another person to control my mood. So you know
Yeah.
what? I'm not going to let you frustrate me. I'm not going to let you irritate me. That's kind of when my
Yeah.
competitiveness kicks in. So
Yeah.
I think
That's
from
right. I
your
relate to that.
standpoint, yeah, you just got to make that decision of what's most important. And, I will say that with ours, we just realized we weren't a good fit for each other. There was no abuse. There was no infidelity. It just, over time, we realized we just weren't a good fit. And I also know that makes it easier. I can't fathom the pain If your
Mm.
spouse has stepped out on you, or if there'd been any type of abuse, or if any. So I'm not acting like this is something where someone just wakes up one morning and says, oh yeah, I'm going to be that guy, so let me change some habits. It takes a tremendous amount of work, but if you decide that that is the most important thing to you, then the work will be well worth it.
Well, I appreciate you mentioning that. I think that's a great side of the story to always remember, that sometimes, like when we figure something out, it's like we think that the rest of the world just needs to do step 1, 2, and 3, and poof, everything's perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's oftentimes more complicated than that as well. Let's talk a little bit about the time that you do get with your kids, and
Yeah.
because you're sharing time. I've heard many people say that then that makes the time that you are with your kids so much more, it feels important, right? Because that those minutes really, really count. And in some ways, people have said, "Hey, that's the benefit of it. Is actually it makes it so that that time, it's almost like a meeting where you go, let's just meet until we're done, and you go, how
Yeah.
about we meet for an hour or 20 minutes, and then that positive constraint can have a really, it could be very impactful. Let's talk about what are some of your habits or philosophies or strategies with your kids right now where you feel you're doing your best coaching work for them, right? Yeah, tell us
Well,
a little bit about that.
I love the way you just brought that up, because I've always kind of said tongue in cheek, and I do think most people want to be in a loving relationship with a life partner and want that more traditional family, and that's certainly something that I hope to have again one day. But I do say tongue in cheek that divorce has actually made parenting easier because of the compartmentalization of the schedule. And it works, especially for me as a professional speaker. It works great because the first thing that goes on my Google Calendar is my time with the kids. And I know that will be focused, connected time. And then I'm free to do whatever I want outside of those windows. And it keeps things very black and white. And I know that for a lot of people, that can be a struggle in the traditional, when everyone's around all of the time, because it's not as clear cut. So for me, that part's actually really helped. And I know for our kids, it's really helped to give them structure. They know what days they're with daddy, and they know what days they're with mommy. And, the other part that she's been incredible about is how flexible she is, because my schedule can often
Right.
change.
Yeah.
If you called me up and said, hey, I've got a speaking gig for you in Austin, can you get down here in 2 days? She'd be willing to work with me if I was supposed to have the kids. And for that, I'm really, really thankful. So for me, and this was a process, because I love my work so much, as many people do, that it's really hard for me to turn that part of my brain off. And I would
Mm,
find that I was with my kids, but I really wasn't with my kids. I
yeah.
was with them at the park in body, but I was checking my phone, or I was thinking about a talk I had to give, and I really wasn't fully present. And that's one of the things I'm most proud of. I'd say, especially over the last year, I've done a better job, still way far from perfect, but I've done a better job of being able to say, okay, I've got my kids this afternoon from 3 to 7. Everything else can wait. I'm going to focus completely on them. I'm going to leave the phone in my glove compartment. We're going to go out to the park, or we're going to go out to eat, and I'm going to focus completely on them. And I'm going to ask them insightful questions about their day. And I'm really going to connect and interact. And it's really helped our connection and our relationship big time. And I found that everything else that I used to be thinking about, it'll be there when I drop them off, or it'll be there the next morning. It's not going anywhere. And then same thing, certainly I miss my children when I'm not with them. But I've also learned that, when I'm not with them, that it's okay, and I can focus on work and be guilt-free. I don't
Yeah.
have to think, I'm gone for 3 days. They understand that's what daddy does. He loves his work. He's passionate about his work. In fact, as a father, I hope that my kids can grow up and find something they love to do as much as I've loved what I do. And I want to model that for them. But I've also gotten better about being able to be away for a few days and not feel guilty about it. So those were two struggles I had early that are getting much, much better now. So from a scheduling standpoint, yeah, it actually works fairly well.
Well, and on that topic, I think what's so good is that what we're really dialing into here is just a philosophy that works for somebody who's divorced and somebody that's married, and that is blocking out time. And it's the
Yes.
intentionality. I mean, I hear it from the married guys too, where, one of my buddies, Jim Shields, I don't know if you and Jim are
Oh, Love
Okay.
Jim.
All right. So yeah,
18 summers, baby.
that's right.
18
18
summers.
summers. And he wrote a book, for those who haven't heard me talk about him, The Family Board Meeting. Well, Jim was at our very first ever Front Row Dads retreat in October of 2016. He taught that
Wow.
philosophy. And here we are, recording this in the fall of 2019. And guys are still practicing this. They still put that as like one of their most important family traditions, is this family board
Absolutely.
meeting. And for anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, this is just basically once a quarter meeting with one child, one-to-one, for about 4 hours. And the philosophy is really simple, but here's what it does. It creates a framework that we say, look, we're going to go out, we're going to spend 4 hours together, one-to-one, no technology. And that kind of resembles what you're just saying right now, which is it's intentional time. It's not just like, hey, I'm with my kids, hey, I'm at home, it's actually really making something special, giving it a frame, giving it some type of tradition that makes it different or unique.
Absolutely.
And I think, and you protect it. And that's what guys are doing. So when guys are saying, hey, I'm having success at home as a married man, and they talk about your phone. You said, I left my phone in my car. Our guys are saying, hey, I leave my phone in my car. I put it in a gun safe. We have a ceremony
Yeah.
where they come in and they bring out the gun safe, and the kids
Love
put the
it.
phone away and they lock it. And it's like, one of the guys has a gun safe that you cannot open it for like a certain number of hours. Once you've locked it, it's like right. So, but
Well,
that's what we're talking about here.
absolutely. Well, there's two things, man. You're so insightful, and I love that you're bringing this stuff up. And yeah, Jim and his board meetings and his 18 summers was, I've had several epiphanal moments as a father, and the time I saw him speak and kind of followed up with him, that was definitely one of the major ones. For me, one area that I've recognized that I have to do a better job of is creating individual time with my kids. Most of the time I have them, it's 3-on-1. Because I'm a basketball guy, I always joke, I have to play zone defense because I'm trying to guard 3 people here.
Yeah.
But this fall, I'm proud to say that I've made the effort to take each kid individually on one of my work trips, where they get to
Nice.
travel with me. They get to see me speak, which is always their least favorite part of the trip, but I still want them to see what it is that I do. And then we plan something fun around that. So
Yeah.
I'm moving in the right direction with that. But hearing you say that about the board meetings is a great reminder that I can still continue to level that up. And I will say, from a phone standpoint, and this is where I'm glad that I'm moving in the right direction. There were so many times where even when I was with my kids and I had my phone, I wasn't even doing work stuff. I was so busy trying to take pictures and videos of them and document the fact that I was with them. And I think that was kind of a deep-seated insecurity that I needed to show my social following, hey guys, I'm a present father. I'm actually with my kids at the park. And I actually wasn't fully present with my kids at the park because I'm so worried about documenting it and posting it and sharing it. And I'm not saying that to by any means diminish people that put stuff about their children on social. There's nothing wrong with that. But I found for me, it was I was more consumed with taking the perfect picture or video and writing the perfect post than I was with actually being with my children. And my ex sent me a article, it's been several months now, on the concept of sharenting, which is parents that share a lot about their kids on social media, and that as your kids get older, that you should have a respect for the fact that whatever you put out on your platforms will leave a digital fingerprint for the rest of their lives. And are they okay with the stuff that you're putting out? And, a perfect example, one of my all-time favorite pictures was when my kids were really young. They came out of their rooms and they each had put underwear on their head and they started doing a dance. And certainly that gives some light to the intellect of children I'm raising, but it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And I remember putting a picture of it up. But then I thought, when my kids are 15 or 16 and they start dating, and if someone were to Google their name and the first thing that pops up is a picture that I posted of them with their underwear on their head, that might be embarrassing for them. Like, here I'm trying to do something that I think is funny, but that might not be funny to them, at least in the future. So if you go back and kind of audit my social media for the last year, you'll see a huge decrease in the posts that I've made about my children and when I'm with my children. And those that do go up, I now always ask for permission and say, Lila, are you okay if I post this video? Jack, are you okay if I post this picture? And there have been a few times where they say, no, I don't want that up. And I just smile and say, no problem. I'm glad I asked. And I don't put it up. So I bring that up because, I'm not saying that you have to keep your phone in a glove compartment. There's times where you can and should have it. But I know for me, I was so worried about proving to the world that I was a present dad that I actually wasn't a present dad. And now I feel better about that. I feel better about the direction of spending more individual time with my children, because anyone with multiple children knows, you know, they're each so different, and you need to have some inside jokes and some very connected time with each one of them. And I'm losing my train of thought right now who taught me that, but somebody taught me that. I think it was Marcus Sheridan. I don't know if you know Marcus or not, but Marcus is a
Yeah,
fellow
great dude.
speaker. Yeah,
He's
one of the
he's been on the
best.
show.
And oh, he's phenomenal. And one of the
Yeah.
things that he said was, you can kind of, you can understand your relationship with each child based on how many inside jokes you
That's
have that
right. Yeah.
only you two get. And that was
Correct.
really powerful to me. And I
Yeah.
really love that. So the neat part is, so I've taken one son on this individual trip to New York, and I've got two coming up with my other two children in November and December. And the son that I took to New York, I mean, we have 3 or 4 inside jokes of things that happened, and we still reference them. You know, that was a month ago, and it's just a neat little relationship that we have. So I know that was a
So
mouthful,
cool.
but man, that's just all things that I think we should be cognizant of as we're working forward towards being connected fathers while still managing our businesses, our social presence, and all of these things in between.